We, and by we I mean Jujutsu Kaisen watchers and readers, are aware of the fact that Sukuna is strong. Those of you who are anime only have recently seen Sukuna put on an absolute show as Jogo tried his absolute hardest to land just one hit against Sukuna. Jogo, an entity compared to be somewhere around 8 to 9 fingers worth of Sukuna's strength. That is to say that Jogo is almost half as strong as a full-powered Sukuna. And yet this entity that's 50% as strong as the strongest thing in the JJK universe could not land a hit against 15-finger Sukuna. And while the feats that Sukuna has managed to pull off in the anime up to this point are incredibly impressive, the feats that Sukuna has managed to pull off in the manga are even more impressive. But Sukuna is one of the most perplexing big bads we've ever seen in an anime or a manga. Because while we can sit here and go, huh, that guy's pretty strong, we can't go, oh yeah, I can also tell you why he's strong. I mean, you can, to some degree. Obviously, we understand that Sukuna has things like Cleave and Dismantle and his domain expansion, Malevolent Shrine. However, recently, anime-only watchers got to a moment in the story of JJK that's been perplexing to manga readers for a long time, and that is his battle against Jogo. And not just because of how one-sided it was, no, because of how it ends. See, for a long time, and that is to say for the entirety of JJK's manga up until the battle against Jogo, we believed that Sukuna's curse technique was Cleave, Dismantle, and Malevolent Shrine. Considering the fact for the majority of the times we ever saw Sukuna fight, that's all he ever used, and that made sense because 99.999% of people in JJK only have one curse technique. Megami has the 10 shadows, Geto had curse manipulation, and really the only person that we ever saw step out of the restraints of having one curse technique is Gojo, as Gojo not only has red and blue, but he also has the 6 eyes and Limitless and Hollow Purple. But Gojo is said to be the strongest sorcerer on Earth, and therefore him having multiple curse techniques wasn't the craziest thing of all time. However, Sukuna is the king of curses, the strongest ever curse spirit. So if Gojo can have multiple curse techniques, why can't Sukuna? However, Sukuna is very admittedly the kind of person who wouldn't tell us about his techniques. In fact, in his battle against Jogo, not only does he speak a square whenever he pulls out his flame arrow, yes, he literally speaks a square, it gets blanked out. But after he fires his fire arrow, he says, oh, do you believe I'd be stupid enough to reveal my curse technique? Which led a lot of anime-only watchers to start scratching their head in the way that manga readers scratched their heads about 2 years ago. Because now, not only does Sukuna have Cleave, Dismantle, and Malevolent Shrine, but also fire? And not like just some little cute fireball that he learned to keep his spacing correct in his battles. No, a fireball capable of overpowering the literal volcano curse spirit's firepower. Mind you, Jogo's domain expansion is that he opens a volcano mouth so hot that anybody who isn't using their own domain or a simple domain simply bursts into flame. And Sukuna lit that guy on fire. So it's not like Sukuna decided to just try and use fire one day. Sukuna has a mastery over fire that even somebody like Jogo, who's said to be half as strong as his full power and has his entire kit revolving around fire, could not hope to achieve. But that's made an entirely new wave of people ask the incredibly logical question, what is Sukuna's curse technique? Is it Cleave and Dismantle, or is it something to do with fire? Well, worry not, anime-only watchers. We still don't know. Well, I wish I could sit here and give you a concrete answer on what Sukuna's curse technique is. I simply can't. In fact, this is one of the most prevalent conversations that happens in the JJK fandom. Because even now, as Sukuna is still battling it out in the manga, he's doing things that are perplexing us. Just because we don't have an answer doesn't mean that people haven't tried to find an answer. And today, I've compiled all of the best theories about what Sukuna's curse technique might be. But much in the same way that we usually tend to do these videos, I'm going to start with the theories that I believe the least in and work my way to the theories that I believe the most in, till eventually we get to our last theory, which I believe to be the actual true answer. So for the first time in a long time, both anime-only watchers and manga readers of JJK rejoice, because we're talking about a video that neither of you know the answer to. But I might, but you'll get that at the end of the video. But before we get to revealing anything about Sukuna, guys, please, for me, like this video, subscribe to the page, and hit that noti bell. And if you like the idea of me talking about JJK, then boy oh boy are you gonna love my anime podcast, Otaku's Anonymous, where me and Danny Mata break down everything that happened in anime this week, JJK very much included. It's available on Spotify, YouTube, and Apple Podcasts. Or if you want to look like somebody who will give their best theories on what Sukuna's curse technique is to somebody else, go ahead and wander into my merch store, otakusanonymous.net, where you can pick up some of the greatest anime t-shirts, sweatshirts, and sticker packs known to man. So Sukuna, don't we all love a man of mystery, a walking natural disaster that's said to destroy everything that he comes into contact with, an entity so powerful he couldn't be killed and therefore he had to be sealed into 20 fingers that eventually got consumed by a high schooler. Sukuna is the epitome of Black Air Force energy. Anytime those markings start to show up on Yuji's face and Sukuna pushes his hair back, you know it's go time. And everybody and anything that comes into contact with Sukuna during these moments understands that they are simply an ant standing before a giant. Now, for a long time, we believed we understood Sukuna. In fact, we had gotten whole descriptors on how his techniques work, as we were told that he had two abilities, Cleave and Dismantle, both of which operate functionally the same. However, Cleave is for inanimate objects and Dismantle is for animate objects. Wait, nope, reverse that. Dismantle is for inanimate objects, Cleave is for animate objects. But in essence, both of them were just the ability to slice, with Dismantle having the added bonus of it can be stronger so long as Sukuna adds more cursed energy to it. However, in Sukuna's battle against Jogo, it's revealed to us that there's more to this man than we knew previously. But now that it's been revealed that Sukuna has other abilities, what is his curse technique? Is it a possibility that Cleave and Dismantle aren't even his actual curse technique and are actually just him using cursed energy as a blade? In a very similar capacity to how Gojo is able to crush a can through just the application of cursed energy. And therefore, in every battle that we've ever seen Sukuna be in, he's never actually used his cursed technique, but instead just uses cursed energy like a blade. And considering the fact that Sukuna only ever adds as much cursed energy to his Dismantle as necessary to cut his opponent in half, that's not the craziest thing of all time, as Sukuna is notorious for not taking his opponents seriously. If Sukuna hasn't been using his curse technique this entire time, and his curse technique isn't Cleave or Dismantle, then what is it? Well, let's get into the theories that the interwebs have decided upon, starting with the theories that I believe are the least likely and working our way up towards the theories that I believe are our most likely, which brings us to our first theory as to what Sukuna's curse technique might be. Cooking. You heard me right. Like the act of slicing, preparing, and making food. Would you believe me if I told you that this is the most popular theory on what Sukuna's curse technique might be? And for all intents and purposes, it's actually not all that crazy. See, the reason that people believe that Sukuna's curse technique might be cooking is because of what we know about his abilities thus far. See, we fully understand that Sukuna has Cleave and Dismantle. When Cleave and Dismantle are being explained, they're depicted as two different kinds of cooking knives, a chef's knife and a sashimi blade. And I think we all know there's a fair amount of chopping that goes into cooking. On top of this, anime-only watchers recently saw that Sukuna has the ability to use fire, and a large amount of cooking requires fire. However, the theory does extend a little bit beyond just, knives and fire, as people believe that Sukuna's curse technique is cooking, and that he uses these cooking applications to consume sorcerers, and that by consuming sorcerers, he's able to absorb these sorcerers' curse techniques. See, in essence, this technique would look a lot like Geto's, as Geto has the ability to consume cursed spirits and use their abilities. Well, he actually more has the ability to consume cursed spirits and then summon them. But he also has abilities like Maximum Uzumaki that allow him to take the curse technique out of every cursed spirit and add it into one mega attack and use those attacks against somebody else. So in essence, Sukuna's curse technique would work like Geto's. It's just replace cursed spirits with cursed users. However, if you believe in this theory, it brings forward the incredibly logical question, okay, then why didn't Sukuna eat somebody like Megami? As Sukuna has on multiple occasions shown interest in Megami and his 10 Shadows technique, and therefore if Sukuna were to eat Megami, he would be able to get his 10 Shadows technique. Well, Kenjaku actually very interestingly pointed out to us that after he consumes a cursed spirit as Geto, that cursed spirit's curse technique stops growing. That is to say that cursed spirit will never get stronger than the moment that it's consumed, and therefore a rule like this could also apply to Sukuna and his consumption of cursed users, and therefore he would want to wait for somebody like Megami to make their 10 Shadows technique stronger before he consumed them. And this theory also kind of plays into something that we're currently seeing happening in the manga. Anime-only people, la 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 for the next couple of minutes. See, in chapter 240 or 241 of the manga, we saw Yuji with an interesting looking arm, and that is to say that we saw Yuji with a red and yellow Dagon-esque arm. Now, this has led a lot of people to believe that Yuji is consumed a part of Dagon and therefore is now able to manifest Dagon's abilities, which a lot of people have tied to Yuji's possible curse technique of being a vessel. That is to say that anybody or anything that Yuji consumes, he's able to use that power. Kind of like exactly what we're currently describing about Sukuna. And while it's not entirely confirmed that this arm does belong to Dagon, the similarities are too many to mention. However, we were told by Gojo when he's training Yuji that eventually as Sukuna's vessel, he would begin to be able to manifest Sukuna's curse technique, something that we technically never see Yuji do. And therefore, it's a possibility that Yuji spent so much time as Sukuna's vessel that he's now, after Sukuna has left him, is able to manifest his curse technique, which would be the vessel ability we were talking about. However, that vessel ability wouldn't have been made by coming from Kenjaku, but instead by being Sukuna's vessel for an extended period of time. And therefore, while Yuji isn't going to go munch on some sorcerers, it's a possibility he was able to inherit the consumption ability from Sukuna. What's Sukuna's curse technique? Eating, maybe, but I don't really like that one. Because could you imagine that the King of Curses curse technique was cooking? Narratively, it makes no sense to me whatsoever. The second possible theory is actually a theory that was emailed to me and what got me down this rabbit hole, as the second possible theory about Sukuna's possible curse technique is soul manipulation. Now, this one's a bit more abstract, so you're gonna have to go on a little bit of a walk with me. But throughout the entirety of JJK's manga, we've seen Sukuna have 3 pretty important kills. I mean, we've seen Sukuna have some very important kills, but he's also had a couple of less important kills that still had a pretty big impact. Now, 2 of these kills happened very recently in the manga, with the 3rd kill that we're going to be talking about today being Jogo, and in all 3 circumstances of Sukuna making these important kills against characters whose strength that he respected, and respect is a big thing here. Right before Sukuna kills this person, there seems to be some kind of spiritual plane pep talk. And since anime-only watchers have now seen Jogo die, we'll use Jogo as an example. See, right before it's revealed that Jogo is a burning corpse, we see him talking with Dagon and Hanami about how they'll be reincarnated and how they as cursed spirits are the real humans. But Sukuna steps in on this afterlife meetup and tells Jogo that if he ever truly wanted to become powerful, he shouldn't have tried to be somebody or something else. He should have destroyed everything around him and gained power through that, as only by blazing a trail specific to you will you ever be able to achieve real power. And thus, right before Jogo was revealed to be dead, Sukuna appears to be kind of giving him a pep talk about, well, you know, you lived a good enough life, but you should have lived it differently. And Sukuna does this exact same thing again in a very recent battle in the manga against, and anime-only watchers, for like 3 seconds, 1, 2, 3, Hikari. While Sukuna isn't seen in the afterlife imaging of the way more important death that he pulled off in the manga, the conversation of the person that he just killed talking to everybody else in the afterlife is all about Sukuna, and therefore while Sukuna isn't present, he's present in the conversation. And in all 3 of the circumstances, after we see these characters in the afterlife, we get a scene of them dead. Now, one could just say that this is Gagagitami giving us closure about these characters' deaths, but other people have begun to hypothesize that there's a possibility that Sukuna has the ability to break somebody's soul. And by breaking and bending to somebody's soul, he's not only able to copy their techniques, but also find out how to destroy their curse techniques. With the best example of this that I can talk about in a non-spoiler way being him out firepowering Jogo, as by making Jogo realize that he is better than Jogo at the one thing that Jogo is built on, fire, allows Jogo to let go of trying to stay alive, giving Sukuna the win. And in the manga, these circumstances are very similar, as, and once again, in his battle against Hikari, whose CE is electrified, Sukuna shows that he's basically immune to electricity. And while battling against a character whose entire kit is lightning and being fast, Sukuna outpaces him. And in his battle against Gojo, Sukuna finds a way to punch through the limitless, showing Gojo that when it comes to dimensional control, Sukuna is actually superior. See, Sukuna is dedicated to defeating strong opponents in what they're strong at, and there's possibility that it could be tied into soul manipulation. Once again, it's kind of on the edge for me. The third possibility is that Sukuna's curse technique is storing. See, this one is actually kind of an offshoot of the cooking theory, where Sukuna has the ability to either consume other curse techniques or, through his complete mastery of cursed energy, create new curse techniques. And he's able to store away these techniques in the form of his tattoos. See, Sukuna's tattoos are a bit weird. I mean, they're sick and they kind of have a logical explanation as to why Sukuna has them, as tattoos around your wrists or biceps on the Chinese mainland around the 3rd century were used to make sure people knew if people were thieves or burglars. Basically, if you were caught in any kind of crime, you would get a circle tattooed around your wrist or your bicep. And therefore, for a long time, many people believed that because Sukuna was such a bad person, that's why he had these tattoos. However, what's odd about this is that Sukuna's tattoos are different when he's manifesting in Yuji's body than when he's in his true form. See, because when Sukuna is manifesting in Yuji's body, he has 2 circles on his wrist and bicep. However, in his true form, he only has 1. Now, one could very easily make the argument here that those 2 bands split into 1 band for each of his 4 arms, and that he manifests with 2 bands on each arm in his 2-arm form because he usually has 4 arms. But the other way that people decide to take this possible theory is that Sukuna, after his full body transformation, is able to use more curse techniques, and therefore the tattoos disappear, denoting the fact that those curse techniques have been unlocked to him in his true body form. People have taken it even further than this, as people have said that every tattoo on Sukuna's body that isn't a square is a cursed tool that he can use, and every tattoo on his body that is a square is a cursed technique he can use, with the trident symbol on his forehead actually being the symbol for cleave and dismantle. And while I do think this is kind of a cool idea, because any ability revolving around tattoos I'm gonna find cool, I really do think the reason that he has 2 wristbands and 2 bicep bands when he's Yuji is because he usually has 4 arms. But enough about the theories that I don't believe in. Let's get into the ones that I do believe could be a possibility. And the first of those 2 theories that I believe could be a possibility is that Sukuna's cursed technique revolves around him being a god of death. That is to say that Sukuna's cursed technique is, if it's ever been used to kill people, he can use it to kill people. See, as we currently understand, with no speculation, Sukuna has slashing attacks, fire attacks, and can wield a numerous amount of weapons. And when it comes down to killing people, fire, slashing, and weapons are a pretty good trio. However, people on the interwebs also believe that Sukuna has a 4th ability that we have yet to see, and that 4th ability is poison. But why do people believe that Sukuna has the ability to use poison? Well, it actually all comes, rather ironically, from one manga chapter cover, specifically the manga chapter cover of chapter 31, where Sukuna is shown holding a skull that appears to be filled with poison gas. Now, the reason that people believe that the skull is filled with poison gas is because, yes, it appears as though there is a gas of some sort within the skull, and that gas is green, so people are like, oh yeah, that's usually the color of poison gas. However, I actually believe that people are drawing the wrong conclusion when it comes to this manga cover. See, because, well, yes, you could look at that skull and go, oh, it's filled with poison, and therefore Sukuna has a poison ability because that's how he killed this skull that he's holding. But if you look a little bit closer, you'll realize that that skull has a big old slash out of one side of it. And I'm going to get into manga spoilers here. My editor's going to put a manga spoiler bit until I'm done talking about it, so skip until you don't see that anymore. But if we remember correctly, there is a person in the JJK universe who was once stabbed right here. And who was that one person? Well, that one person would be Gojo in his battle against Toji. As when Toji is slicing and dicing Gojo up, one of the places that he stabs him is directly above his left eye. And as we know, reverse curse technique can heal you, but sometimes it leaves a scar, which is why Gojo to this day has a scar above his left eye, something that he showed off to Toji when he was telling him about how he used reverse curse technique. Now, the skull that Sukuna is holding on the cover of chapter 31 has a scar on the skull exactly where Gojo was stabbed. And to take it even one step further than that, the trail of poisonous smoke that people believe that was coming out of this skull's eyeballs is eerily reminiscent to an afterglow that we get from Gojo when he's battling against Jogo. See, there's a scene in Gojo's battle against Jogo when he's about to kick Jogo in the head. We see Gojo appear behind Jogo. And as Gojo is about to kick Jogo in the head, we see an afterglow begin to trail from his right eye, in an almost identical capacity to how the afterglow is leaving the eye of the skull. And therefore, while this cover art could be showing us that Sukuna has the ability to use poison, I think it was actually an insane foreshadowing to the fact that Sukuna was gonna kill Gojo. As in this cover, Yuji, as Sukuna, is holding on to Gojo's skull. But Malevolent Shrine, whenever it's manifested, does have a bunch of cow skulls at its base, and cow skulls are supposed to signify plague. So maybe Sukuna does have a poison ability. And while Sukuna as a character is based off a real-life historical figure who was then made a folk legend in Hokkaido, it's hard to deny that Sukuna has a lot of similarities with Ashura. See, Ashura are demon warriors from the Buddhist religion. They are essentially gods of war and destruction, with 6 arms that all wield different weapons and a flaming Dharma wheel that appears behind them. And it's Indra's job to destroy these Ashura. And therefore, while Sukuna is based off of something that's definitely not the Ashura, he shares a lot of similarities with Ashura, mostly due to the fact that Ashura sustain themselves through destruction. And if we think about the conversation that Jogo and Sukuna had real quick, we realize that Sukuna was telling Jogo that in order for him to become stronger, he shouldn't have concerned himself with humanity and just destroyed everything around him. Almost like he was telling him to be more Ashura-like. There's also the fact that Ashura are shown with 6 arms and 3 faces. And while Sukuna doesn't have 3 faces, he has 2. But technically, when he manifests into Yuji, he does have 3 faces, as he has Yuji's face and then a face and a mouth on both sides of Yuji's face. And while he doesn't have 6 arms, he has 4. Oh wait, I'm literally just now realizing that Sukuna in his true form does have 3 faces, as he has the 2 faces on his head and then he's got a face on his belly. So all he's missing is 2 arms. But let's be real, if he had 6 arms, it would have been excessive. On top of this, Ashura are often depicted as having gold bangles around their wrists and biceps, very similar to Sukuna's tattoos. And mind you, they don't have 2 sets of bangles, they just have 1, much like Sukuna's true form. And on top of that, Ashura are usually depicted with a flaming Dharma wheel behind them. Now, the Dharma wheel is kind of like Buddhism's 10 commandments, except they only have 8. And thus the Dharma wheel is an incredibly holy object in Buddhism, and that's why Ashura walk around with a flaming one. And crazily enough, Sukuna also acquires a Dharma wheel that he multiple times throughout the story wears on his back. And while Sukuna's Dharma wheel is not on fire, it's also not a super holy object. And it's certainly not telling everybody the 8 tenets to live by if they want to be good Buddhists. So the possibility that Sukuna's CT is somehow tied into him being a god of destruction or a god of death is not crazy to me at all. Which means that Sukuna's abilities would be, if it's ever been used to destroy humanity, I can use it. Projectiles, fire, slashing, poison, explosions, all of it. Considering the fact that Sukuna, even before he became a cursed object / cursed spirit, was known as the king of curses, and therefore has been compared to walking destruction incarnate for a long time, that's not the craziest theory of all time. But that's actually not the theory that I believe in, though it is a good one. The theory I believe in is that Sukuna is the true and only disaster curse. See, as we all know, there's 3 important disaster curses that all just recently died. There's Hanami, who was manifested by humanity's fear of the woods, Dagon, who was manifested by humanity's fear of the sea, and Jogo, who was manifested by humanity's fear of fire and volcanoes. These 3 curses are referred to as the disaster curses. However, these are oddly specific fears. And while somebody can absolutely be more afraid of tsunamis than they are of volcanoes, what about the people that are just afraid of natural calamities, period? If you are afraid of tsunamis, tornadoes, volcanoes, a meteor hitting the earth, what cursed spirit would your fear create? Well, the answer might be just the natural calamity cursed spirit. And I believe that that's what Sukuna is. And there's actually some evidence to substantiate this. See, recently in the Shibuya incident, when we saw Jogo unroll all the 10 fingers that he fed to an unconscious Yuji, a lot of anime-only watchers probably didn't notice because it happened very quickly, but every single one of the 10 fingers that Jogo unfurled were different. And not like, oh, they were crooked in different ways, or the nails were longer on some. No, at the base of every single one of the 10 fingers of Sukuna, there was a different element. The base of some of the fingers that Jogo unfurled was crystal. The base of some fingers was iron. The base of some fingers was wood or tentacles or even dirt with little plants growing out of it. Every single one of these 10 fingers represented a different element. So it's a possibility that the real reason that Sukuna is able to use that fire arrow in Shibuya is because Jogo fed him the fire finger. And thus Sukuna, as the fear of all natural calamities, has all elemental abilities under his belt. Since you're afraid of a bonfire, he can use fire. Since you're afraid of tornadoes, he can use wind. Since you're afraid of landslides, he can use dirt and mud. And when Gegegatami was asked about Sukuna as a human, Gegegatami, the author of JJK, said rather than a human while he was alive, he was more like a natural calamity. Straight from the author's mouth. And therefore, Gegegatami might have been hinting at the fact that the reason that he became the natural calamity curse is because in life he generated so much fear towards himself, and people viewed him as a natural calamity. When he became a cursed spirit, he became the natural calamity cursed spirit, a representation of humanity's sheer lack of power in the face of something as powerful as nature. And to go even further than this, since Sukuna is based off a real person who later became a folktale, the folktale states that if Ryumin Sukuna's body is ever exhumed, that Hokkaido would be hit with all manners of natural disasters, tsunamis, blizzards, volcano eruptions, and therefore Ryumin Sukuna's folktale that Sukuna is based off is already tied into natural disasters. And considering the fact that his cursed technique being all natural disasters would give him the ability to control all elemental releases, essentially, that would explain how he got the fire arrow. But what do you guys think? Out of all of these theories, which do you believe is the most likely? Or is there a theory that you believe more likely than any of the theories that I listed? Tell me in the comments below. And while you guys are down there, please, for me, like this video, subscribe to the page, and hit that noti bell. I gotta get to pickleball.